Moving into the new year, our team here is getting bigger, not just in size but also headcount. And we're quickly running out of space, so I thought it might be good for us to downsize our PCs here at Mobhouse HQ. It's been a while since I did a mini ITX build, and I've always had to use smaller GPUs for them in the past since the older ITX cases don't really allow for bigger cards if they're actually small cases. Today I'm going to try and stick this giant 3-fan Palit GeForce RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP into my newest editing PC with a 12th Gen i7 12700K to see if it's going to replace my full tower over there for all my hybrid content creating and gaming needs. Let's get cranking. Recently, we did a 4-hour-long live stream building this PC, which to be honest took a little longer than it needed to, but I was a little rusty when it came to ITX builds. Here are all the parts that we used for this build if you're interested. I wanted a PC that can handle content creation workloads in a small package without much compromise in performance. This time I chose to go with a 12th Gen Intel i7 12700K because of DDR5 support, which means that even with only 2 RAM slots on an ITX motherboard, I can still go up to 256GB of memory in the future when 128GB sticks become more available. Right now, 32GB of RAM should work just fine, but I will definitely upgrade to 64GB the first chance I get for 4K video editing, but RAM is now in shortage. So the other concern is definitely going to be the cooler and GPU compatibility when using a smaller case. Fortunately, the meshlicious case allows us to fit in up to a 280mm AIO cooler and a full-size 4 expansion slot GPU, which is fatter than this boy here. I went with a 240mm Vantex Glacier 1 to save a little space in the case for airflow and also cables and stuff like that. Also, the fact that the fans are not RGB means that we're gonna have less cable clutter, which is a plus. Which brings us ultimately to the focus of today's video. How does a full-size GPU like this card, the Palit RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP, perform in an ITX build? First, let's take a closer look at the card itself. To be honest, this is just one good looking card. Probably one of the best looking RTX 3060 Ti's that I've ever seen. I've never been this surprised to take a card out of the box because the pictures really don't do it justice, and probably neither will this video. This 3-slot card comes with 3 fans with a shroud and back plate with a brushed metal texture, painted with this awesome color shifting paint, which reminds me of a Lambo with a chroma flare paint job. Even in an all black chassis like the one we used, it really just stands out. The overall design of the card is pretty sleek and understated otherwise, accented with a diagonal motif at the front, and at the back we have this nice honeycomb cutout pattern. The build quality is also pretty solid. Although the back plate is plastic and not metal, there's this nice aluminum frame around the entirety of the card, as you can see, that just lends it a little bit more rigidity. Of course, at the face of the card, you also have some RGB. Very subtle, but it's there. I'll probably lower the brightness to not overshine this awesome color shifting paint job. Also, this card uses 2 8-pin power connectors, as you can see. In terms of dimensions, like I've mentioned before, this is a 2.7 or 3 expansion slot GPU. It is 294mm long, 112mm wide, and 60mm thick. For the thermal design, of course, we get 3 fans and an aluminum heatsink with 6 heat pipes that come in direct contact with the heat generating components. We're definitely going to be putting this to the test during our benchmarks. Though, given the design of our case, where the entire chassis is covered in mesh, we can probably expect similar results versus an open bench, which we will test it against. In terms of specs, I guess you guys should be pretty familiar with the RTX 3060 Ti by now. As a refresher, we get 4864 CUDA cores, 152 Tensor cores, 38 RT cores, and 8GB of GDDR6 VRAM. For this card specifically, we get a boost clock of 1665 MHz, which is actually lower than the 1800 MHz on Palit's very own Gaming Pro OC version, but I reckon we should be able to just remedy that by cranking it up using Palit's Thunder Master utility software. Moving on to the benchmarks, basically I'm only interested to find out if there is any significant difference between using this RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP versus a RTX 3070 Fe for content creation purposes and maybe a little bit of 1080p and 1440p gaming. Ultimately, some of the benefits of going for a 3060 Ti versus a 3070 for a smaller build like this is going to be, firstly, of course, the lower price, and then we have the lower thermal output, aka slower running fans, aka a more noise-free working environment. Of course, this ColorPOP version is a tad bit pricier than your average 3060 Ti, but you gotta pay for that bling, man. So, yeah. Firstly, in time spy, we can see a 12% performance lead in graphics scores on the RTX 3070, which increased to 15% in time spy extreme. A similar observation can be made in Firestrike. Basically, the higher resolution test will favor the RTX 3070, which is to be expected, but the difference is acceptable in my opinion based on the price difference. Unigine tells the same story again. We're seeing a 14% to 18% performance lead on the RTX 3070. Now these are purely rasterizing tests. I'm curious to see what happens when we put some NVIDIA tech into the mix like DLSS. In actual gaming tests, firstly, Shadow of Tomb Raider showed a 13 to 14% lead on the RTX 3070, but as you can see, the game is completely playable on the Palit RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP, even at 4K on the highest settings with RTX on high and DLSS on performance at a solid 69 FPS. Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition is a good test for the RTX capabilities of your GPUs. I'm surprised to see that the RTX 3070 pulling ahead by a whopping 30% in 1080p, but only about 20% in 1440p and 4K. In my opinion, it's better to game in 1440p and maybe even 4K at lower settings on the RTX 3060 Ti here for this title, but for games like these, I do still prefer the RTX 3070. Cyberpunk 2077 is actually playable in 4K on the RTX 3060 Ti if you turn off RTX and set DLSS to performance, netting you up to 87 FPS on medium and 49 FPS in ultra. However, if you want ray tracing, it seems like 1080p is still the best resolution to play this game at with the 3060 Ti. In fact, even the 3070 is barely hitting 60 FPS in 1440p on RTX medium DLSS quality. For extremely demanding titles like this, even with that 15 to 18% improvement on the RTX 3070, it still might not really matter since you are barely able to game at one resolution higher. Doom Eternal seems to be an oddball because the performance gap between the RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP and the RTX 3070 Founders Edition in 1440p is only less than 6%, but a higher 11 to 14% on 1080p, and of course they are both unplayable in 4K. If you play Doom, there's almost no reason to get the 3070 over the 3060 Ti. For competitive titles like Valorant, again we're only seeing a 6% lead on the RTX 3070 in 1440p and a larger 9% lead in 1080p. 6%, 9%, 69%. But we're already hitting 300 to 500 frames per second on the 3060 Ti, so I'm gonna say that it's a point to stay with the RTX 3060 Ti. Overall, for newer and more demanding titles, the RTX 3070 is quite a bit better, but like I said, I care more about the productivity and content creation aspect of this build, so let's move on to our productivity benchmarks. In content creation benchmarks, overall in all the Puget tests, I'm talking about Photoshop, After Effects, and also DaVinci Resolve, we're only seeing a 3 to 4.5% difference between the 3060 Ti and 3070, which is completely acceptable in my point of view given the price difference between the cards. Strangely enough, our test results for a Premiere Pro is actually quite a bit higher, up to 22% favoring the RTX 3070. I've run this test a few times and came to the same conclusion, so it could either be something to do with the software itself utilizing the 3070 more, or it could be human error, so I really can't tell you. However, if you do 3D work, the RTX 3070 is still the better pick, yielding us up to 18% more performance. That might not seem like much, but 3D workflows are often very tedious and repetitive, so that 18% is going to add up quickly. Finally, let's take a look at the temps and also acoustics. As you can see, even if this ITX case is covered in mesh, there's still quite a bit of a difference in terms of GPU temps at full load. This is unavoidable mainly because the CPU cooler's radiator is also dumping heat into the case as I set up the fans as intakes to help keep CPU temps manageable, since I'm planning to do CPU heavy workloads like rendering and such. Also, setting up the build to be in positive pressure with all the fans being intakes will minimize dust build-up, hence making maintenance easier. A few things you can do is probably adjust the power limit on the 12th gen Intel i7, which I'm doing a video on soon, so please stay tuned. You can also upgrade to a 280mm AIO cooler for a little better cooling performance. And if you're mainly gaming, you can also consider to set the fans on your AIO cooler to be in exhaust, which will improve your GPU temps at the expense of your CPU temps. In terms of noise, the Palit RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP in the ITX build is only slightly noisier during full load, mainly because the temps are actually a bit higher as well, but it's nothing too serious, which is great. Here's a recap of the pros, cons, and cons of the Palit RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP. I give this Palit RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP a very unique looking #cheap buy. Pop, 8.5 out of 10. The Palit RTX 3060 Ti ColorPOP reminded me about everything that I liked about the 3060 Ti when it first launched. For an RTX build like ours with the 12th gen i7 12700K, I feel that this is a pretty solid pairing for content creation workloads. For gaming, it is also very solid because DLSS 2.0 really helps us fully enjoy ray tracing gaming up to even 4K with some titles with a little tweak to the settings. Although if you're going for pure gaming, you could potentially go down to an i5 and still enjoy the 3060 Ti without much compromise. Again, I can't repeat enough how much I like this color shifting pane. I mean, look at that. It's so cool. This card just oozes cool no matter who you show it to. I just hope that our B-rolls actually did it some justice. And it's always nice to see some innovation when it comes to the aesthetics of GPUs, because outside of performance, us PC master race people, when we're paying this kind of money, we just want to get some, bragging rights. And that's everything I have to say about the RTX 3060 Ti Palit ColorPOP. If you thought this thing pops, go and get one, wait for what? And if you thought this video is awesome, don't forget to like and share, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more content like this, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram to see more shenanigans from the Mob House crew. Also don't forget to hit the notification bell on YouTube and leave a comment down below if you have any questions regarding this GPU that I just showed you. Okay, and I'll see you after the comment section. Guess who's back? Comments back. Oh wow, that's so lame. It's been a while since we did the comment section. I'm not going to try to reply to every single video that we missed, so this one I'm going to start with, well, time internet. In the wonderful world of YouTube, the first comment comes from Daniel Zita. Thanks for the awesome video. Can you do a studio tour for 2022? For sure, bro. If there's enough of you who ask for it, confirm we will do it. Mr. Tipso TV says it's about time. Correct. The time is now. Fresh Jeff once again says very underrated channel. Thank you very much, bro. Hope that you can share this video out to more of your friends so that we can turn from being underrated to being overrated. I'd rather be overrated, to be honest. Moving on to the very magical place of Facebook, we have a couple of people who commented on the 69 devices. Joshua Wong said, cannot add more devices? 69 is a number, as if you got so many devices. Nakajima Takimara says, very nice. I see you are a man of culture as well. Moi Chi Hui say, in Sarawak, they don't have time because they too busy to lepak. Wow. Vape Kali Berastia says should go into full-time advertising. I think my face not pretty enough, not lang loi lang zai enough. That's why people don't want to hire. If you want them to hire me, then you go PM them lah. One Muhammad Nazrul says, too bad no coverage for landed house even if you live in a bangsawan house. Yeah lah bro, because you know why? Bangsawan, a little bit too busy, don't have time. And that is all the time we have for comment section this week. Leave more comment down below and I'll try to reply to you lah if you're funny or if you ask good question. If you ask those dumb question, then I probably won't reply lah because you're dumb.